It's been a while since I've recorded anything here, and my subject matter, I'll try to keep this short, and this is an opinion, and that's going to be on the topic of ghosts. When I talk about ghosts, I got to get into a lot of things here that I feel are going to sound unusual, weird, I could better say that in a sense. Are they real or are they fake? Is something about ghosts, and when I try to put my 2 cents into it, I realize that I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I've posted things here of content, and I always say my association with ghosts has to go back to 2020. Trying to explain that, I had, I do believe ghosts here. My experience with that, I'm not going to go too much into it here, other than saying I have recorded things with people saying hello. So my association with that goes into trying to give my 2 cents on it. And it's not going to sound perhaps coherent because I'm going to go into some things I really feel every time when I see something and get into this discussion, I always find myself somewhere on the fence on that. Do ghosts exist? Are they real? And the answer is yes and no, in a sense. Because here's the first thing on ghosts. YouTube always seems to post so many videos on ghosts. And every time you see something, it's always packaged the same way for frights. So when you get into looking at anything with frights, and it's entertainment, and people edit it, and then constantly you'll get into someone hashtagging something, you see something from it, and trying to make some type of conclusion, you can't. And the reason is many times over, you'll say, hey, look, I'm here for entertainment. I'm not here to really think things through. And all I'm interested in is being frightened. For the person who's posting content on YouTube about ghosts, the problem you always have is prove it. And you can't. That's the whole thing. You really can't. A lot of times when you encounter something within your own home or something you see, you become totally consumed by it. And this is something I feel strongly about. You have to experience something. That's about it. When you see something or when you have something occurring is when you'll believe when someone touches you or something comes out, a banging noise or something occurs within your own house or within your own person, that's when things are a little bit different. There's nothing that someone says or posts online on YouTube will you be convinced. You never will be. On the other side of that, there's something else also I want to give my 2 cents on. And that's simply the people who tend to debunk ghost videos, ghost hunters. And I always say strongly, no one debunks them. No one comes out of the way and says, hey, something, your opinion is stupid. Because a lot of times when I see things of that nature, I always find the same thing. People that tend to debunk, I'm not sure the credentials. What gives you the right to debunk something? And then again, I say the same thing. A lot of times, skeptics tends to be something I also agree with as well. Sometimes I say the same thing. That people can see something and say the most common thing, that's fake, that's phony, that's been edited as well. And then you get into something that I wish people would look at and ask questions about. And that's simply this. What's happening with the ghost? When you see something, no one seems to ask questions. For example, when you see something moving, why does it move the way it does? No one asks that question. Hey, I see something moving fast. For me, when I started doing things here and I posted some things of content, I always asked the question when I see something moving quote unquote backwards, it's moving fast. How come? When I see something that appears and it wants to be seen, then it seems to vanish. How come? Questions like this is where you try to push content away from simply entertainment and then try to inform someone, asking questions in that kind of manner. When I see something, I saw recently a video of a woman that she posted where there's footsteps coming down the hallway, It's something approaching her bedroom, and then two doors open within her bedroom. And of course, that's frightening. But then on this side, for me, I keep on saying, I'm fascinated. Are the two doors opening? When a small child's toy starts to make sound and someone approaches it and catches it, they're frightened. They're terrified. They have a cell phone in their hands, and what do? They record, the cell phone is recording the actual toy making sounds. But the question, why is it making sounds? Is something trying to communicate in some ways, and what is it doing? And this is where things become interesting in a sense of asking, when a ghost appears, it's somewhere in what's called a gray zone. It doesn't know exactly where it is sometimes. So logic is, if we're trying to make ghosts entertaining, by all means. But if we're trying to understand things and ask questions, that's where I feel I'm trying to draw the line on that. Whenever I look at something, when I have had my experiences here, I've always had things saying hello. I don't know why. Still stumped to this day why things would come here to say hello. And when I've seen other types of ghost videos, I always see the same thing. There was one video of a woman who had been murdered and her body had been, I think, thrown into the lake. And then two quote unquote ghost hunters went out to try to see what they had heard. When the woman, I think her body or something was thrown into the lake, essentially appeared. They were in a boat and her head popped out. They took off running. And the question mark I always have, did they try to help her? If there is something and you're calling out an apparition and the apparition appears, was anything done for the person to help them? The people took off, the video hit their channel, and about 1,000 likes on the video. But then question mark, what about the apparition itself? Did someone try to help the apparition? And I don't know. That's the problem. Many times over, we're left with that situation. When someone posts content within YouTube, there's no resolution. Constantly, there's always something that someone says something about it. I understand it, I look at it, and I try to observe it. There is a video posted of a man who has his dog died. And essentially, perhaps the dog came back. And the man is overcome by emotions because basically the dog, he can hear his dog barking in the background. He recognizes the dog and he starts weeping. And this is sold as being something scary. And I start thinking to myself, ridiculous. Uh, is that something for my entertainment? Am I supposed to be frightened by it? Am I moved by it? And this is the problem I have many times with content. When someone says apparitions and ghosts, there's always something of the word called humanity. It always seems to be lacking in ghost, quote unquote, videos. We don't seem to understand things or grasp things. And when we try to understand them, they're always done for entertainment. They're always done in such a way not to inform people, and constantly channels that upload content of apparitions always see the same thing. It's up to you to decide, are they real, are they fake? And the people that post these content on these channels never seem to come to any type of conclusion. They always seem to post the content for entertainment, send me your ghost videos, here's my YouTube address or my Gmail account, and then we watch the same thing over and over again. We seem to enjoy being frightened. But when it comes to trying to understand, we seem to lag behind. If someone gives a formal discussion on what? Ghost videos, the problem we always have the same thing. We want to be entertained. We don't want to learn things. We always want to be frightened by things. I always use the word Halloween. We love to be frightened, but we don't want to understand. There's one thing to point out, and that's science in some ways. My belief in ghosts always seemed to be something, I always say strongly, somewhere in the middle. I'm always curious to try to find out if there are ghosts, if there are things that exist as ghosts, why are they moving the way they do? Why do we see things? Why does something appear? A face appears, and all of a sudden it takes off, it vanishes. The apparition, the ghost, act like, well, for me anyway, a particle. And I always say strongly, I still believe this strongly. Ghosts seem to have some type of association with particles. We don't understand particles in some ways. And when we do, there's always seems to be some type of, I say, something that's similar to particles, how they behave. And I always say the same thing. When I'm looking at things in this way, in a science way, I always say the same thing. We just don't understand, and we don't want to understand. To a point, when we see things that go bump in the night and we see them, we're more entertained by what the content is. And when we have someone debunking things, and we listen from their viewpoint, this is what it is, somebody's pulling a string, someone is editing, someone is trying to have a hoax. The problem with being a hoax is sometimes it isn't really a hoax. I'm not going to go much on with this type of topic because I always feel strongly. Mine is an opinion in some ways, and it's not going to sway anyone one way or the other. My only conclusion is simply this. I wish many times over we would spend more time asking questions about what we see and try to make something more informative and ask questions and simply say, I wish I could see if someone has lost someone. It wasn't presented entirely as a fright video. Thank you.